All right. Lord knows there's been a lot of talk about the Olympic Stadium over the last few months. The province is going to go ahead, spend $873 million just on the roof and technical ring. And we've recently discovered that doesn't come with anything inside the technical ring, and that's going to cost another $100 million. Anyways, we know that it's going to cost a lot of money. So why don't we have some hard discussions about a real renewed vision for the Olympic Stadium site? That's what William Jegher is calling for. He recently penned a piece in La Presse, and he is on the line. William, welcome back to the show.
Morning, Elias. How are you?
I'm doing well. And just for everyone's knowledge here, it should be noted that you worked with Stephen Bronfman on that really interesting plan to bring a baseball team, or at least half of a baseball team, back to this city over the last few years. And you are at EY in real estate, hospitality, and construction. So you know your stuff on this end when it comes to building things. I wanted to point that out. Why'd you write this piece in La Presse?
Good question. I mean, look, I wrote it, I think, out of pure frustration and also really just to point out what I felt should be obvious to a lot of people, and that, people look at Olympic Stadium, and, not everybody, but a lot of people, as if it's some sacred structure that can't be touched. And so the premise of the piece that I wrote is, if you want to talk about sacred structures in Montreal, let's talk about the sacred Montreal Forum, which was the home of the Canadians. They won 24 Stanley Cups while in that building. The home of the Rocket, Jean Beliveau. We turned that into a cinema and a retail complex. And by the way, that's okay. I'm not suggesting that was the wrong decision. Could it have maybe been done a little bit better? Probably. The only premise that I'm suggesting is, can we not at least have an intelligent discussion around what are we actually doing here with the bowl of the stadium? Why are we just leaving it as is? Why are we just putting a roof on it? It just strikes me as being, of all the options that could possibly have been considered, probably among the worst.
What do you think the hang-up is? This is a government that has always liked to talk a big game on how they're a party of the economy and smart decisions, yada, yada, yada. What do you think the hang-up is on why they don't want to think at all outside the box on this issue?
I really don't know, and I think that's part of why I wrote what I wrote, and I wasn't trying to point a finger necessarily at the government. It was there are a lot of, I'll say, lobbying interests as well that are lobbying for their own cause in relation to Olympic Stadium. I just don't understand it, and I'm not going to pretend to understand what information the government necessarily has access to or what studies they've done. If there have been studies done, we haven't seen them as the general public. And so for example, even the amount that was put forth on demolition, which I think a lot of us in the industry who have some experience with stadiums and arenas looked at that number and said it's impossible. It just doesn't seem to be a file that has been done with a lot of diligence. And I just feel that it could be done better. And why, what the government's motivations are, I can't possibly begin to imagine what those could be.
William, we're aligned very much on this issue. Obviously, you've probably seen my posts about this on X, and you've probably heard me on air ad nauseum on this subject. It seems like we're aligned. Why don't you present what's your vision? Tell our listeners what you think a real, true, renewed vision for that site should be.
So look, I think that, the government's motivation here is to create an economic engine for the East End of Montreal. And I'm aligned with that as well. I think there should be an economic engine for the East End of Montreal. I just don't think that putting a new roof on Olympic Stadium is that engine. What I would do is, first of all, it could be one of a variety of things, or it could be all of them, because that's how big the site is. The site, measures, several acres, maybe 50 acres. I'm just talking about the bowl of the stadium itself. I would do one of the following. That's an area that is in dire need of housing. We talk about a housing crisis. Let's build housing. You could probably figure out, how do we build a new mixed usage facility, whether it be an amphitheater, whether it be a new stadium, something in between on the existing site of the bowl. You could imagine probably building a brand new state-of-the-art convention center. If you look at Palais des Congrès, they've been trying for years to expand so that they could host larger conventions in Montreal. They don't have the space in their current spot. What about building a new convention center on the site that could host larger conventions that are not able to go to Palais des Congrès? And again, I haven't done any studies on this. This is just me talking. My only real message to the public is, can we not at least look at this? Can we not at least analyze this? There's got to be something better, because I firmly believe that just putting a roof on this thing pretty much solves nothing. It's not going to bring Taylor Swift to town. I know that that's the dream of some people. She's not going to play in a building that has, terrible acoustics, doesn't have enough washrooms. The corporate suites are non-existent. The parking garage is falling apart. You're going to have to spend several hundreds of millions of dollars more if you really want to get serious about this. And at that point, you may as well just build something new, because building something new will be cheaper.
With William Jegher from EY talking about the Olympic Stadium site. William, from what I know about you, you're someone that doesn't like to waste his time, right? So the fact that you took the time to write this does seem to suggest to me that you feel there could still be time to get the government to change course. Is that the case? Because, it's sort of, every day that passes feels like, oh boy, this is closer to reality, the spending of the $1 billion. Do you think there is still time to change minds on this one?
Look, it's a great question. I have no inside information on the timing of this, or sort of where the government stands on this. I write oftentimes to vent as well. And so I did see this as a bit of a therapeutic exercise. Was I trying to send a message? Absolutely. I have no idea if the train has already left the station or not. I would like to hope that it hasn't. Again, all that I'm saying is, let's get together. Let's talk about this. There's a lot of smart people in this city. Let's get them involved. There's just got to be something better. And again, if I just look at the way things are done in other major cities in North America, they're not done the way that they're done here when it comes to managing our sports infrastructure. I think you put it best, Elias, on one of your X posts. You said, well, we're investing all this money. We still have a soccer team that plays in an old stadium. We still have a tennis stadium that has no roof. We still have a CFL team that's playing in a stadium that's 120 years old that doesn't even have actual seats. So I thought your post was great, because you're saying we're spending all this money. What are we actually solving when it comes to our sports infrastructure, and our concert venues or what have you? We're not solving anything. And that's to me, the most frustrating aspect of this.
Is there a hesitancy? So, William, you published this piece in La Presse. You're going on the record. Do you think there's a hesitancy from big names in the financial business world in Quebec to say what you're saying out loud? Do you think the case would be helped if we saw, some of the big business names in Quebec say to the government, what are you thinking here? Outline what you just said on all of the issues with a plan like this.
I'm not necessarily convinced of that, Elias. I think it is important for people to speak out. I do think that, like me or like you, everybody has day jobs, and there's only so many causes that one can sort of, chase after or embrace, in terms of trying to do more. I feel like this is one that is just always, been, for whatever reason, and I think, you're in the same boat as you said, it just bugs me. I just feel like this is just something that we need to be doing better. It frustrates me to no end. But are certain conversations being had behind closed doors with influential people? I would guess that they are, because I just can't imagine that, the smart people in this city, especially in the business community, agree with this decision. I think maybe some of them are probably apathetic to it, but I would doubt that they're endorsing it.
Well, William, I take great note that you could have published this in a lot of places, and you chose La Presse, and I think that is an interesting forum to make the case to a whole bunch of Quebecers. William, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks again for having me.
William Jegher does real estate, hospitality, and construction at EY.